Hey everybody, Braden here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're covering the second day of my return to tournament chess, which is the fourth round. So far, I've had pretty good results. I have 2 wins and a draw. The draw again was against someone who's 2700 bullet, which is insane to me. So I'm playing with the white pieces against Michelle, and Michelle is someone I used to play against before I had my huge hiatus. And we had 2 draws. Both times I had my chances to win. One of them was just only me had chances. The other one was back and forth. Now I'm playing with the white pieces after having black pieces both times in those games. Let's see what happens here. D4, D5, knight F3, knight F6, C4, E6. By the way, yeah, D4. Not something I've really played before in tournament chess, so this was already new. Knight C3, bishop to E7, bishop to F4, castles, E3, and just something to mention here. My opponent was surprised. They were expecting E4. It's what I've pretty much only played online. It's what I've really only played in tournaments as well. And they made a positional mistake here. They played b6. Now, luckily, it works out for them because of a tactical sequence, we'll see. But it is a pawn sack line. And other than that, if they don't go into it, then they are in strategic danger here. So I take on d5. Now, normally when they play b6, take on d5. That's the one thing you should look at. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, and my opponent took with the e-pawn because they thought they had to. They actually can take with the queen, and they should. E-takes is just admitting defeat there. Where if bishop takes c5, there's bishop b4 check, knight d2, and knight c6. And the whole point of this is we can't really move our bishop without playing f3 first. And if we play f3, our center might become more vulnerable to attack later on. So the argument is that there's compensation for the pawn. But let's just see a little trick here. So we might think bishop e2, queen takes g2, and bishop f3. But unfortunately, they have an intermezzo here. They can take on d2. And after king takes d2, queen takes f2. Best we can do is queen e2. And yeah, we're just down a pawn in an ending. So that's not good. Let's go all the way back. So they played e takes d5. I played bishop d3. The whole point is bishop b4. I'll play knight d2, no problem. Bishop to a6. I castled because if they want to take on d3, I want them to develop my pieces for me. And they kind of have to at some point because their knight on b8 can't move until they do this. So they took bishop to d6. I took, and I'm just trying to argue that they have a weakness on c7. And I don't have any. So rook fd1 to start, and the whole point is this prevents c5 actually. Whereas if I play rook ac1, they play c5. So rook fd1, if c5 is played, I can take it, and the whole point is it unleashes my queen on the d5 pawn. So a little cute move there. They play knight d7, now rook ac1, and c6. And now we see the problem. Black's going to have to pretty much defend the c-pawn for the rest of the game. Or they have to push if they can get it in. But eventually I'm going to go b4 to make it even harder. Here I played h3. I have some time to waste here. I decided to play this move because, well, now I have Luft for my king. No back rank issues ever. It's nice to do that in these d-pawn openings especially, I've noticed. F6. Knight h4, and the idea is I want to remaneuver to f5 potentially. Rook fc8, knight f5, queen to e6, and rook c2. And now I'm trying to remaneuver. Well, actually not just remaneuver, mainly just maneuver both my rooks over to the c file and try to get some activity there. But also I wanted just to make this move because it's active. And something like rook d2, this is just one of those small things where if I play rook d2 instead, the rook on c1 is actually undefended. Whereas if I play rook c2, everything is still defended. So even though they both achieve the same thing at the end of the day, everything's defended here, which is nice. So they played g6. I played knight g3, which was kind of my plan. So I was hoping to provoke this move, and now my idea is to remaneuver to f4, where it's very, very well placed, because they don't really ever want to play g5. f5, knight e2, knight f6, rook d to c1, rook c7, b4, and my opponent plays b5, which is just incorrect. I think maybe I should have just considered a4 here. I did in the game, I believe, but I ended up not going for it. Instead, I played rook c5, which I think is just incorrect. This is just a silly move and completely unnecessary, because eventually they're just going to get a tempo and get to the c4 square. That's one of their big ideas now, that the c4 square is weakened. But what else? Like that's not really important because they're never playing c5. I don't need to plug the square. In fact, I would rather just play like knight f4, queen d2, knight d3, knight c5. The knight is much better placed on that square. So yeah, rook c5, wasted time. Rook ac8. And now I have the choice between a4, knight f4, queen d2. Well, queen d2 allows knight e4, so maybe something like queen b1, or knight f4, or a4. And I play none of those. So a move that I was expecting that I might have to play at some point was f3, and I decided to start with that. But I didn't realize how many issues that would cause me. So I went from just getting a better position pretty easily in this game to completely not only throwing it, but now having to defend, and it just goes down from here. Let's just say that. Knight d7, rook c3, knight b6, and now you see they're going to c4. Knight f4, queen d6, a3 to defend b4. Knight c4, and I play rook e1. Rook e7, g3. I need to overprotect f4 because there's threats of just knight takes e3, followed by winning the f4 knight at some point. g3, rook c to e8, and I decided to do something very drastic here because if I don't do this, I'm losing. I'm losing the pawn on e3. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't remaneuver my queen in order to defend it. And if I could do that, then if I can bring my queen to c1 and king to f2, I can hold on a tiny bit longer. But it's just not possible to get all these moves in. That's 3 moves I need, whereas they have the immediate threat of just taking on either e3 with the knight or playing something like g5. There's too many threats. So I took on c4. Honestly, I still think this was the right call. I just wasn't able to show anything for it in the game. Spoiler alert. So it takes queen c3. And now my big thing is if I can just keep things closed, then I'm pretty happy. King h8, king f2, a6, h4, knight to h3, rook b1. So if they try to go for a5, maybe b5. I go h5 here. And the whole point is if they take, I am trying to pretend like I'm happy. Maybe I go f4, maybe I go knight back to f4 and like rook h1. Trying to create a weakness to attack. Because right now I have nothing. So if I can create something, that's better than nothing, of course. They go king g7 though. Knight back to f4. g5. Knight g2 this time. And I'm looking at f4. And if they go g4 something, I can go knight h4 and try to target their pawn. a5, f4, g4. I thought h6 was a bit more interesting though. I don't know why they didn't play it. This just looks like the better choice to me. But g4, h6 check. The whole point is if like after h6 check, I'm just trying to bring a rook in if they take it. So if king takes, which I'm sure is still fine for them, at least I get a ton of activity like this, right? And that would be awesome. For example, queen d7, they're not actually defending the pawn like this anymore because I can give them this check, and all of a sudden things are so messy. I think I'm fine here. So yeah, that was the idea of h6 check. King f6 though, knight h4, a takes b, rook takes b. I don't want to open up the a file. rook E b7, queen c2, threatening f5, queen c8, queen b2, king e6, and then queen b1. So just like a funny remaneuver, kind of asking for a draw or hoping for one. I didn't ask for one. I don't believe though. They play king f6 to defend f5, queen b2, hoping they would go into some sort of tactical mishap here. Or like maybe they would play king e6 and I'd just be happy with the draw. Rook takes b4 though. Queen takes b4. I was hoping for a takes, but after queen a8, this is clearly over. So I didn't do that. Instead, I played queen takes, rook d7, a4, king e6, queen b1, attacking the pawn again, rook f7, a5, queen b7, queen c1. I have to keep queens on, otherwise there's just no hope. And after queen b4, I decided to go for e4. This is something I wanted to do earlier. The whole point is I'm trying to open things up and make things at least a little messy. Because if I can make it a little messy, then maybe I can get something in there. But d takes e4, queen a1, because I want to play d5. But they play queen d2 check, obviously. King f1, e3, and I don't have enough time for d5. D5 just doesn't work. D5 check, queen takes d5 here. So I went queen e1, went into the end game here, which is obviously completely losing. I was just hoping for some tricks if possible, but it just didn't work out in my favor. So very disappointing. This f3 move, in my opinion, was the only mistake I really made. You can argue rook takes c4 is one too. I think that was a practical decision though. But it's quite unfortunate having a better position out of the opening, playing what I thought was a pretty okay game until then. Clearly fighting for the advantage and then blowing it. But it was a good lesson to not be too complacent in my chess positions. Don't create weaknesses for nothing if you don't need to. Because one thing that I am pretty stubborn about is I don't like to make weaknesses, but at the same time, I think it can be useful to know when to, and that was just not the time. So sometimes it's a little bit tweaking back and forth. You gotta keep playing the game. So that was it, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next game, the final one. In fact, I believe I'm on a +1 score now, so if I can, I don't know, finish the tournament even with a loss, end it with a 50% score, which is pretty good for my first tournament back in about 3 years. So we'll just have to see the game though. But thanks for watching and have a good one. Bye bye.